Now, in the last hour, we were talking about the polling, the uphill battle that President Trump faces in this re-election bid this year. And a lot of that, the challenge in our electoral process is big tech, and the big tech algorithms and the big tech bias against Republican candidates, against Donald Trump especially. And giant platforms like Google and Facebook, the masters of the universe, they have the ability to sway elections with the way that they orient their Google search engine or Facebook's algorithm, what you get to see, what you don't get to see, who they censor among each candidate's supporters, who they don't censor. All of these policies that the masters of the universe in Silicon Valley implement have real-life consequences to our electoral process. And our next guest is an insider for Facebook, and he was featured in the latest Project Veritas undercover video of James O'Keefe's group that just came out today, and can give us a real insight into the thinking of Facebook and the way that they censor conservatives and their attitudes towards President Trump's supporters in particular. Our next guest is Ryan Hartwig, again, who was featured in the Project Veritas video today, who worked for a third-party company that was contracted for Facebook. Ryan, welcome to Breitbart News Tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So Ryan, now I know that you were employed by Cognizant, and as I mentioned, it's like a third-party company, I guess, that reported to Facebook, was contracted by Facebook for content moderation. Tell our listeners about what your job was and give us a sense of how you were involved with Facebook.
I worked full-time as a content moderator for Facebook. So I started there in 2018, March of 2018. But yeah, on any given day...
I'm so sorry, Ryan. I think your connection is breaking up, your phone connection.
Okay. Are you okay now?
Yeah. A little bit better now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. So let me know if it's not clear. So yeah, on any given day, working as a content moderator, you are exposed to some graphic material. You can review a post dealing with pornography, graphic violence, a beheading, but you also get a fair amount of just memes, so it could be funny posts, political posts. So there's a wide variety of things that we review. But yeah, again, on a given day, you would review maybe 200 jobs or pieces of content in a day, and you'd action those. You take actions, you either ignore it and leave it on the platform, or delete it, or label it with like a mark as like disturbing, like an interstitial that would make it so people can't view the content as easily.
So so you're basically the arbiter, the decider of processing the content, what can be seen or what needs to be censored in some way or all that, and so you got a really front row seat to how the others there censor things or how they moderate these things. This is a huge, powerful responsibility because so many of us rely on Facebook and the news feed of Facebook for all sorts of things. So what did you see a bias? What did you see?
Yeah, I definitely saw a lot of bias. Even as early as a year in, I documented some that team.
I'm so sorry, you're breaking up again. You're breaking up again. Can you go to another location?
I just stepped out.
Yeah, maybe why don't we have you call back in, perhaps, and if you can get a better connection? Maybe we'll have you do that? Because we totally lost him. Yeah, we're gonna get him back. Really interesting case, though, with what he's saying. Because those of you, Ms. Hayward, if you've seen this Project Veritas, and we'll get him to explain it. It's not the bias and the attitude. It's just right in your face. in a couple of the
tremendous
policies.
issue for people. This is a big issue for the whole online world. It has ramifications for our politics, for our elections. We need to know who's making these decisions and how they're being made. And videos like this, I think, are confirming everybody's worst suspicions about who's making censorship decisions and what's guiding them.
Oh, yeah. Yes, because... again, I mean, give our listeners a sense of the power of this too. You come from the world of a technical background. I think people forget that about you, Mr. Hayward, but you understand this stuff quite a lot.
Yeah, the computer world has been talking about the free flow of information for a long time, and at the dawn of the internet age, that was our assumption. We all saw this amazing thing taking shape and people beginning to plug into CompuServe and America Online and talk to each other in a way they never had before, and suddenly everyone could be a writer, everyone could be a pundit, everyone could communicate, and we envisioned this vast frontier of free speech spreading out before us as never before, but here we are 20-odd years later, and it's kind of the opposite. It seems like we've come to the far end of the first stage of the internet, and instead it's become a medium of control and censorship. It's been dominated by authoritarian regimes like China, like Russia. Everything is geared towards the lowest common denominator in the world. If you're Facebook, if you're Twitter, you need to bend to these authoritarian states of mind in order to do business with people, so they do, and the lowest common denominator of speech is reached. And then I think the real problem that you're seeing with the videos like this is that you have people at these big tech companies that have this messianic view of themselves. They think their job is to fix the world and fix humanity by controlling our speech, by shooting down bad ideas, by quashing information, by giving people pure truth that they can read. And that has given them this tremendous inflated ego about what they're doing, and it's become dangerous. And as always, I don't know why we have to keep learning this lesson over and over, but you're always at the mercy of the censors and whatever they decide the truth is. And the ministry of truth in the end is never your friend. Whether it's a government agency or a private corporation, you're always going to find yourself being dominated by it.
Now, I think we got Ryan back. Ryan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Thanks.
Okay, great. So we were just talking about, the danger of content moderators who are biased. Tell us about the bias. What did you see? I know in particular there was one directive that came down about the sort of censoring that you weren't allowed to do. Tell us about this. What did you see?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of bias. I mean, it wasn't just the content moderators. It's the policy itself that's biased and rigged against conservatives. So, I mean, there's a for just a quick example. There's a bullying slang list, which, if you're attacking someone, you can call someone a Trump humper, but you can't call them a feminazi. So, words or phrases that are usually tied to left-wing people, you can't call them that, but you can call them a Trump humper. So they try to explain it away. Oh, it's just an exaggeration of speech, but it allows people to target Trump supporters and call them names. And even if I specifically report that post that they're calling me a name, it would still stay on the platform.
Yeah, and there was one example that you gave of a directive that came down during Pride Month in 2018.
Yes.
Tell us about this.
Yeah, and that's a great example. So during Pride Month of June 2018, when I worked there, they came into the presentation, hey, we're updating our policy. And they said during Pride, we're making an exception to the policy. So normally in the hate speech policy, you can't attack anyone because of their gender identity. But they said, hey, during Pride Month, it's okay to attack straight white males and call them filth if it's in the context of attacking them for not supporting LGBT. So if you're straight white male and you don't support LGBT, then it's open season pretty much.
So yeah, you're allowed to attack straight white males because if they are not showing sufficient support for the LGBT community, they're fair game, and that's correct. Yeah. So I mean. And the little carve out just for that, did that carve out just extend for that month, or did it extend, in other policies?
It extended in other policies as well. I believe that one was applicable. I think that was not applicable during other months as well. Now, as far as other carve outs and exceptions, they fairly recently, towards the end of my tenure there, they said to allow it's not a violation to call someone white trash. when before it was a delete. So they modified the policy, and the same thing goes with calling cops pigs. Like if you have a picture of a cop in an image and someone's commenting calling that person a pig, normally that would be a private individual, but they specifically stated in their post, their guidance to us, that would now be allowed. So yeah, it's a number of things. I could go on and on, but yeah, clear examples of bias. I mean, I was there 2 years. Spent 2 years of my life doing that content moderation. So it wasn't just a couple of weeks towards the end of the project. It wasn't just a couple of content moderators. It came from the top, and the policy was shaped by left-leaning individuals who were seeking to influence the discourse and also influence the election.
When you say influence the election, how did they see their job in terms of doing that? Did they actively talk about we got to get rid of Trump, or we got to get rid of these Trump supporters? What did they say to indicate that?
Yeah, in the video that's released this morning, there's individuals who are stating exactly that. We need to get. I don't have the exact quote off the top of my head, but they were very anti-Trump, and they were actually deleting posts that they shouldn't have been deleting. They were pro-MAGA posts, just because they could. They were able to get away with it. But in a larger lens with the election, they brought, after 2016, they brought the election, all the content moderators overseas, and they brought people here to the U.S. And 2018, I was there during the midterms, and that was a big trial run for Facebook. So they had us tracking and monitoring any kind of election content. So yeah, it's definitely something they look into, not only here, but at a global level. They have training decks for pretty much every country in the world. Poland, Spain, they target. They specifically told me in emails to track and look for right-wing extremism globally throughout the world. So
when you say that they were brought from overseas, the workers were brought from overseas, or the contractors?
Let me clarify. Yeah, no. So before 2016, the majority of the subcontractors were not based in the U.S., but so before 2016, non-U.S. people were actioning content in the U.S. So after 2016, Facebook wanted to have people who understood U.S. culture and politics actioning content. They saw what happened. They saw that Trump won, and I believe this was an effort to have greater control over the discourse in the United States by having local U.S.-based employees reviewing content from the United States.
So when you say it's just disturbing also that the people that could have had the power to delete whole posts and reshape our election could be foreign nationals as well. Both of those seem like kind of disturbing to me. There's a lot of power there.
Right.
Where were these foreign nationals based? Was he hiring contractors in China to monitor our posts or something? Right. Where were they based?
Right, exactly. And I know there's some large centers, and I believe in India that deal more. Before 2016, a lot of that was outside the U.S. But I don't think anybody outside the U.S. could know could understand U.S. politics. So they wanted the monitoring of the public discourse to be
local?
Yeah, I mean, more accurately local. People who know what's going on, who can more accurately tell Facebook, hey, what's going on a local level. So, for example, this past fall, we had a couple of trends. We had the Eric Ciamarella, the whistleblower, and I was personally involved in raising that up locally to my local manager, and they said, yeah, delete that post because he's an undercover law enforcement officer when he wasn't. So for a little while, we were actually, we deleted that, and we got guidance from Facebook to continue deleting it, but for another generic reason. But there's no policy rationale to delete the name Eric Ciamarella. There's nowhere in the policy that would protect him at all. So it was executive decision made by the higher-ups at Facebook to not allow him to be called a whistleblower or him to be exposed by the right, by conservatives, by patriots, as for who he truly was.
Wow. So also, when these decisions are made, did you ever see anything that was just random, like, this person didn't even violate anything, but he's just a MAGA person, so I'm just getting rid of it? Any posts like that?
I would sit next to my colleagues. Sometimes the policy is pretty nuanced and very specific. It's very wordy, but there is some gray area. So it is possible to, if you could back up your decision, if you could explain it away, if the policy is a little bit vague, then there is a possibility to abuse the policy that way. As you know from the video, most of my coworkers knew I was conservative, so they probably weren't bragging about that while they were next to me. But I'm sure it's very possible they were doing that.
So from a policy standpoint, what are we to do about this? That's the big question on people's minds, especially conservative people who feel they're being treated badly. What would your suggestion be for something to remedy this? Should the government step in? Should there be regulations on how tech companies handle these things? Should the tech companies themselves be broken up? Should there be laws that protect individuals and their accounts from arbitrary censorship?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a lot of different elements involved because Facebook is so ubiquitous and it's very commonly used throughout the U.S. It's almost it's akin to a utility. But of course, I don't like the kind of regulations that go along with the utility. And people have asked me earlier today, hey, we need to fix the content of moderators. But I think a lot of the problem comes from the top. So the executives at Facebook. So I think one solution would be to break up Facebook. I see them as a monopoly, much as the railroads were a monopoly at one point, owned by a few powerful individuals. So I really think that it needs to come. They're not going to go willingly. They're not going to go out willingly, but they need to be broken up.
One of the retorts you'll hear sometimes to that criticism is if people that are on the right don't like the way the current social media platforms are censoring them and so forth, well, just go start your own. That's the free market at work. Go make your own network. And there are a few alternatives out there to the biggies that are trying to get off the ground. But is that realistic? Could anybody really, especially in the time scale of an election coming up on us, could anybody step in and just take Facebook's market share as a social media platform and its importance?
No, I don't think that's realistic at all. They have a stranglehold on the tech industry, and they collaborate with the other tech giants, Twitter and YouTube. So I really don't think that's feasible to let the free market decide. As much as I don't want more government interference, I really don't think that it's a tough issue because you don't want to have too much government interference, but at the same time you have these few companies who are abusing their role.
They're governments unto themselves. This is why we need government, is to protect us from something as powerful as that, as you said. This is precisely why we give government regulatory authority, in order to protect our rights against a behemoth like Facebook, all these other giant Silicon Valley titans. Before we let you go, Ryan Hartwig, I got to ask you about what happened with your job. You got the boot from Cognizant, correct? Tell us about how that happened, why it happened, and what you're doing about it before we let you go.
Yeah, so the company I was with, they ended the contract prematurely. So all of us, we left the project. The project ended. Now I did have a time where, towards the end, when I got in trouble for sharing a link to me exercising my First Amendment. So there was a freedom of speech rally outside the mosque in Phoenix. And this was after the Charlie Hebdo attacks, after two individuals from Phoenix went to Texas to attempt to murder individuals who were drawing Muhammad. And so I attended this protest. This was back in 2015. So I was at work in January of this year. We have I shared the link to a coworker, and he reported to HR. I got in trouble with HR. That prevented my possibility of advancing within the company because I could have transferred to another position within Cognizant, it's a very large company. They initially said that it was advocating violence. All I did was share a link of me holding a sign of Charlie Hebdo cartoons. And so they finally had to retract that. They backpedaled and said, well, you violated our policy for sharing personal items using Facebook tools. That's what happened earlier this year. So you'll see that in the video as well, the interview that I filmed with my HR representative.
And so did they let you go, or did you just, resign after that because of this?
Yeah, so I wasn't let go, and I didn't resign. I successfully concluded to the end of the project. And so, the last day there was February 28th, but it was very difficult for me to find work. And then right after that, COVID-19 hit. And so, I was able to find employment. I do have full-time employment right now, but obviously, that whole experience just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth that I would be singled out and targeted because of my conservative views. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it just more power to you on all of this. Is there any sort of legal action you're taking, or no? You've just moved on and you've had enough of this, and are just now shining the light for everybody else. What are you doing now on this?
Yeah, I kind of moved on from that. It's a little bit tiring to keep on pushing back and fighting, but yeah, it's something I've experienced before at workplaces. So I'm as far as Cognizant goes in that HR experience, I just hope that this will affect future changes and maybe they can change the process moving forward. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I've kind of left that in the past. I'm looking forward to new horizons.
I want to thank you for joining us. Ryan Hartwig, Facebook insider, shed light on how Facebook is manipulating all of us with their censorship policies.